I'm here to discuss whether South Africa or the US is more racist. So racism definitely still exists for any of you out there that are in denial. It is still alive and strong in the world and is obvious with the current state of things. And so let's go into first the obvious differences between the two countries. First, the history. The civil rights movement happened in America during the 60s, so that was, can't do math, 60 years ago, and versus something like that, correct me if I'm wrong, and the apartheid just happened in the 90s. So we have had a lot more time, or hopefully should have had a lot more time to recover and to basically fix our racism issues in America. Some things that are interesting differences between the two countries is that the minorities are switched, or reversed I should say. So in South Africa the minority is white people, and in America the minority is people of color. And this is interesting because it brings about different issues of equality. So in South Africa, for example, right now there's a law in place that makes it more difficult for white people to get a job that requires no education, like a position as a sales clerk, a cleaning lady, at a restaurant, like a waitress or something. Those are almost exclusively given to black people. And again, this is to make up for the lack of opportunities that black people have received and do receive in South Africa, and the large population of black people. And just kind of, again, it's all politics, but just to fix a lot of that and to get the economy boosted for the impoverished black people. But this creates a lot of tension between the white people and the black people in South Africa, and a lot more anger and resentment from the white people. So again, or another point is that the segregation is a lot more obvious in South Africa than it is in America. In America, you'll commonly see interracial, my bad, relationships, and you'll see like black people hanging out with white people and groups of just mixed Mexican, Chinese, everything, way more often than you would in South Africa. And for example, when I was in South Africa, I flirted with and gave a black guy my number and asked him out on a date, and a black lady came over to me and she said, "Ooh, you naughty girl, you naughty girl." And then she was laughing, and I was just like, what do you mean, what's wrong? And of course I kind of knew, but I wanted to hear her explain it, and she told me that it's just really not normal, and that's why the black man was acting so strange and wasn't understanding what was happening, and that it's just really not, it's still taboo, and you don't really see a lot of interracial relationships in South Africa still, unfortunately, and it's very frowned upon. And that being said, I never got a call back. Wah, wah, wah. I never even heard anything back, and when I went there, he avoided me. So, like, again, friends, you'll see groups of white people hanging out in South Africa and groups of black people, and you won't often see them mixing, at least in places like Pretoria and Durban, like places where the racism is definitely more prevalent. Places like Cape Town, it's maybe not as prevalent, but you know, it's the same thing as in America. We have the South, and we have like cities with a lot of mixing, like New York. But getting into the nitty-gritty of racism, I would say that Africa expresses their racism definitely more explicitly, and to get an idea of the racism in America, you have to find you have to use implicit measures of racism. What I mean by that is that, so explicit measures is something that you can actually express and say that you feel that way, and that happens a lot in South Africa, where people will either openly say that they are racist without saying I'm racist, but they'll say things like, I don't like to say those comments, but they'll say derogatory comments towards black people, or they'll say black people always steal, or black people this and black people that, they're just whiny, and just negative derogatory things. Whereas Americans, because of our culture and our society, for the most part, It's frowned upon to be racist, and it is definitely seen as a negative trait. So people deny that they're racist, and sometimes they actually aren't racist on a conscious level. And the implicit measures of racism mean that sometimes unconsciously you can be racist without realizing it. So that, like, as an example, is Americans or U.S. people from the U.S., like Americans, will sometimes openly say that they are not racist and they have black friends and all this stuff, but they may be more startled when seeing the face of a black person versus a white person, or they may choose to go to a checkout line from a white person more over the black person, and little things like this. They may feel more threatened in the face of a black person than a white person, or they may feel that the black person is less kind or less beautiful or less anything of the above. And these are all unconsciously expressed. So they're not expressed, they're felt on an unconscious level. They are only found with implicit measures, which is a psychological term and something not getting into. So that's the major difference between the two countries. So to answer the question, I actually don't think either one is more racist than the other. I think that the racism has changed. I think that in South Africa they are still openly expressing their racism, whereas in America we are feeling racism we are still racist at an unconscious level. And they're both bad, and they both need to be fixed. And some of the negatives differ between the two. So the positives about being openly racism is that you know it exists, the tension is spoken about, the issues are there and they're breathing and you know that they're there. Whereas in the negative with like having a racism that exists at a subconscious level is that it's denied and it's ignored, and it goes on, and people pretend like they're not racist. They pretend that problems don't exist and that everything is equal, even if it's not. So those are but the positives of the implicit or the less expressed and unconsciously expressed racism is that it does signify that there is some change, even though it is happening very slowly. And the positives, the negative, of course, of having expressed racism is that it prevents any positive development, and it is a huge wall. But at least you know it's there. So yeah, the dangers of having unconscious racism is what I already covered, that it goes on, it's like the unspoken truth. It's something that happens, and having it be at an unconscious level prevents any progression from occurring because people are in denial that it even exists. How can you fix a problem if you pretend like it's not there? And how can you fix yourself if you don't even see that you are the way you are? And the answers to this is the media. Like, the answers to fixing and solving this unconscious racism that exists in America is to change the way, first of all, the media is portraying people of color and perpetuating these stereotypes that exist way in the back of our brains on an unconscious level, and for psychologists to do more research and work on reversing racism and limiting it. And a lot of the research shows that just simply being experiencing, or basically having experiences with people of color reduces racism. That's why there's a lot more racism in areas like the Midwest, and in South Africa, in areas that are very secluded, like farmers, where they don't see black people and they don't really get any experiences with them. So the answer is not to be color blind, but to be color conscious, even, like color aware, color conscious, because color blind is still a form of racism. It's actually the modern racism of America is color blindness, because it's you're not actually colorblind. You're pretending that you are, and your unconsciousness is still seeing the colors, and your consciousness is suppressing it and denying it instead of being aware of the issues that are definitely still there. So be color conscious, not colorblind. And racism exists in both countries. I can't say whether one is stronger because I say that there are two totally different types of racism. That's my 2 cents. Sorry for the 10 minutes, but this is very relevant to modern times. Hope you have great days. That's the camera I should be looking at. Bye.